red ink has maybe sort of a bad reputation. You might have some grade school papers that kind of flash back to you that are covered in red. I know that's how it was for me. But honestly, there's a lot of great red inks out there. So what I've done here is I've kind of curated out of all the inks that we have at Goulet Pens, taken all of the most popular reds, among the most popular reds, I'll say. And I kind of try to mix up the brands, mix up the color range a little bit. We're gonna put each of these head to head to head to head to head to head to head. It's gonna be a bit of a journey that we're gonna go on together. So buckle up because here we go. All right, so the way this is gonna work, I've got each of the inks in their bottles. I've got some Tomoe River paper. This is the white 52 gram paper. It's a bit on the thin side, but it does show a lot of the properties of the ink, so I thought that'd be kind of fun to use. And I've got some dip pens here because I'm gonna be going through a lot of them. Didn't want to ink up a whole fountain pen and do that, but I can get a good swath of ink with the Kakimori here. It's not meant to be a super scientific test. It's meant to be more just like mashing together kind of what I know about these inks and my own experiences, what I know that people generally like about them, and how it looks and how I feel about it right now as we're doing this. So first one we're gonna kick off with is Diamine Red Dragon. Now, I gotta admit, I'm kind of biased towards this one. This is, of all the ink colors, the ones that I've used the most in my own pens. But I just figured, you know what, I'll go ahead and knock this one out right off the bat. That way I can get the bias out of the way and we can see how it goes. And then everything else will have to stack up to it. So it's a nice kind of conventional red ink. It's got a lot of vibrancy, no crazy properties or anything. But it's just a nice deep red, kind of a blood red ink. I'm using the Kakimori dip pen here, which is really nice for doing like, you know, this kind of stuff, for just testing out the inks, figuring out how I want to hold it the most. I'm gonna do kind of just like a broad swath in here, so partly so you can get like a really dramatic look on the ink, but then also partly because it shows up better on camera when I do like a really big, broad kind of swath. There we go. Okay. And then I have a couple other nibs here. I got a glass pen. There's a Jacques Herbin glass pen. You know, I figured if I want to see what it looks like more in kind of like a regular writing. So this is Diamine Red Dragon. You know, I put a decent amount of ink on here, so it's going to take a little bit to dry. So I'm going to kind of set this one aside. Since this is my first one, it's ranked number 1. Congratulations, Red Dragon. You at least hold the number 1 spot for a while. So I'm going to show you how I clean these off, but it's going to be the same thing over and over again. Any of the glass pen, the Kakimori, basically you just keep a cup of water nearby, kind of swirl it around, get this stuff off of there. Unless you have a really clingy ink that gets in there, just dip it in the water is good enough. Then I take a paper towel and make sure I dry it off, and I see if I can see any of the leftover ink in there. But I'm pretty good to go here. So that one's fine. And it's going to be the same thing with this one. It's going to be a crazy looking cut by the end of this video, let me tell you. So I'll do that in between each one, and with movie magic, we'll skip over all that for the rest of them. Next up on the list, we have Wearingeul Captain Hook. Now it is kind of cool because it's got this like holographic kind of a thing to it. It's like Captain Hook, like, you know, from Peter Pan. I don't know how easy you can see that, but there you go. Isn't that cool? It's the only ink that I know that has this kind of hologram thing. Pretty neat. Good job, Wearingeul. So let's crack this thing open. Now, I believe that this is a darker ink, so we're gonna see how it compares to Red Dragon. There we go. Okay. To my eyes, it's not quite as dark as Red Dragon, but I don't know if that's just because it hasn't dried yet or what. Let's see how it does in the glass pen. I'm not going to write out the whole brand and everything because that just takes me a long time. So Captain Hook. Boom. Cool. Seems very wet, very flowy on this one. So ranking it against Red Dragon. Boy, this is tough. Honestly, these are pretty close to each other. Red Dragon's like a little bit more on the purple side. So, will it dethrone? I don't know. This is really tough. There's a little more shading with Captain Hook. You know, just because I don't want to be super biased, for whatever reason, the way it's hitting my eyes right now, I think Captain Hook is a richer red to me than Red Dragon. I may regret that. I could change my mind as we go further along, but there we go. All right, next up, this one's a bit unusual. This is kind of the odd one in the bunch. This is Noodler's Fox. Still a very popular red, but this is part of their like Light Fast series. So it comes in these smaller bottles. Normally Noodler's inks are in much larger bottles than this. And the ink, it just looks a little like thicker. It looks a little more opaque. I imagine it will behave just a little bit different. It looks like almost kind of milky. It's weird. It's weirded me out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not like worried about it. It's also got a more pungent smell to it. It's not a bad smell though. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I kind of like the smell. The smell might actually be a plus in my book. So let's see here. Get a little of this down on there. I'm not going to be like testing the light fastness necessarily, but I know that's an important property of what this thing does. Okay. Now I'm really dumping this ink on here. Obviously, you're not going to be writing with anything that's going to be quite this wet, but that's all right. And then let's see here. We have Noodler's Fox. Whoop. Fox. Cool. This one, it's definitely a lighter. It leans a little bit orange by comparison to the other ones for sure. So I don't know, and it's definitely a lot flatter color. And I know that's a tendency with certain Noodlers, like waterproof inks and ones with unique properties. They do tend to look kind of flat. I think if I needed those properties, the light fastness, and if I needed the waterproofness, this would be a good one. But just looking at it with my eyes, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. So I'm going to put this one last compared to these other two. But it is intriguing, I'll say that much. Next in the mix, this is a LAMY ink, part of their LAMY Crystal line. So it's not the normal LAMY with the little, toilet paper at the bottom. This is their like higher end line, more premium, and this is LAMY Ruby. So I've used this one a little bit before. It definitely is like probably more on the pink range, on the upper pink range of the inks that I'm going to be testing out here today. This is a much more like a vibrant red. So this is where it's going to get really hard for me to rank, because it's like, how do you compare, a much more vibrant red to the darker reds that, especially one that I've used a lot more. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, you're along for the ride. Okay. Yeah, it definitely has a little more of a pinkish kind of hue to it. One thing I am noticing as I'm swabbing all these up, the color is shifting a little bit as it dries. It means either I need to wait before I rank them, or I'm just going to be moving stuff around a lot. Probably moving stuff around a lot. All right, so we got LAMY, Ruby. Boom. So, holy crap, this is going to be hard. Where is this one going to fall? As it's drying, it seems like it's the pinkness is kind of like dissipating a little bit. But it's a less saturated color than these other ones, and I'm trying to decide if I like that or not. It's probably going to shade pretty well, and I'll be able to tell that at least a little bit with the glass pen. It's actually a little closer to Captain Hook than I would have expected, especially maybe it's the pink ring on the bottle that's throwing me off. It made me think I should have pink. I don't know. Okay, I am going to make a decision here. I'm going to put this above Fox. Fox is looking very orange to me now as I'm looking at it. I'm going to put Ruby in here between between Red Dragon and Fox. I'm very much thinking I might end up switching Captain Hook and Red Dragon. Maybe it's the bias coming through, but I don't know. As they've dried, I kind of like that one better. I don't know. We'll see. But this is where I feel good about this for now. Next up, we got Jacques Herbin Moulin Rouge. So this is a relatively newer ink. I love their little 30 mil inks because they got a little pen rest here. So I don't know, it's kind of fun. It's pretty thin. It's really made like for dip pens, but it kind of works in this instance. Nice attractive bottles. I'm a bit nostalgic for this brand because this was literally the first ink brand that we ever carried at Goulet pens. However, this ink just came out last year. So cool company. They've been around literally since 1670. They made ink for Victor Hugo. So they got some history. But let's see if that helps them out in the red ink category. I have not used this ink in person yet, but at least from what I've seen of it so far, it seemed very appealing. So let's see how it goes down and what I think of it. Oh, interesting. It looks It looks pretty orange to me, kind of like more like the Noodler's Fox. But then again, now I don't know if it's just like these are just much darker reds. I mean, I know they're darker, but it's different seeing these in person as opposed to like, you know, just in a picture on the website or something. Okay. Interesting. Not as deep and saturated as some of these other colors, that I'll say. Let's see here, let's do glass pen, kind of emulate more of a fountain pen writing. Now this glass pen, this thing is probably writing more like a really wet broad nib. So that's here, J. Ron, Moulin Rouge, okay. Boom. Yeah, it's a lighter red, I gotta be honest with you. I'm not as in love with it as I thought I would be, based off the swabs and stuff. Though, as it's drying, the shading is really, really starting to pop. Oh, and I do like that. I do like that shading. That might help it out for me. I think if I got to make a decision right now, I'm going to move this in between Red Dragon and Ruby. The color I don't like quite as much. It's a bit too bright for me. It's a very pleasant color though, but the shading makes it up for me. So there we go. First 5 down. Am I happy with this? Maybe. Red Dragon is tugging at me to be number 1. I don't know. We'll see. What's going to happen? You don't know. Neither do I. Let's go to the next one. Here we go. Back 9, back 5. Private Reserve. This is Private Reserve Infinity. So this is a unique property in this ink. It's designed to not dry out in the pen when you leave the cap off. I don't know what that's going to do for it in this type of scenario. You know, it'll probably stay wetter on the dip nib. Not that I'm hanging around very long with that, but the color looked pretty nice on the swab. I've not used this one in person yet, so I will be experiencing it for the first time. Okay, it's a little bit brighter red color, you know, more on like this kind of strawberry end of things, as opposed to the cranberry, right? I feel like we got a strawberry and a cranberry categorization kind of coming out with these, right? All right. Okay. Looking pretty pleasant. And I'll go ahead and use the dip pen, glass pen. This is called Infinity Red, yeah. Boom. PR Infinity Red. As it is drying, let me see where that's falling. One thing I will say, and this probably has something to do with the properties of it, like lasting longer, not drying out. It's spreading just a little bit more on the paper, especially where I wrote with the glass pen. The edges are not as crisp. It looks a little kind of fuzzier. So I think that has to do with like just the extra lubricant or some other property of the ink. So it might be a little more picky depending on the paper that you use. A really absorbent paper, it probably would like spread pretty good. So not as crazy about that, but the color itself is really nice. It has a little bit more pink to it. So it's a little more pink than the Moulin Rouge, not quite as much as the LAMY Ruby. Let me see. It does shade a little bit, but I'm not as crazy about the kind of spread there. So I think for the moment I'm gonna put it at number 6. Though I don't know, Fox, I may end up switching those, and I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna switch Red Dragon. Every time I look at this, I'm like, I like Red Dragon more than Captain Hook as it's dried. So there, that feels right. All feels right in the world to me now. We got Noodler's Cardinal Kestrel. Non-controversial Noodler's ink here. And it's kind of cool because the Cardinal is the Virginia state bird, which is where we're from. So that's kind of neat. Cardinals are cool. I legit like see cardinals like in my yard and stuff like that. Like they're around. It's definitely a thing in Virginia. Let's check out Cardinal Kestrel. Okay. Goes down nice. Ooh, it's got a little more orange to it than I am seeing from these other inks. Dump it on here pretty good. Interesting. I'm intrigued. Almost looks a little more of an orangey red. Like, still red. I'm gonna let it dry though, because really once it's dried, that's when I can determine. But it really leans pretty orange, more so than I would have thought. Okay, Cardinal Kestrel. Let's give that a second to dry, and then we'll put it in its place. I am having like an existential crisis now because I'm realizing how hard it is to compare these to each other and rank them. Any of you watched my videos before, you know I hate making decisions about these types of things. It's very much on the orangey side, but I really do like the shading that's kind of coming out there, and it's a pretty pleasant color. I gotta be honest with you. Me personally, my taste, I'm a little more of a fan of this color range than I think in like the pinky kind of red. Gosh. Okay, I'm just not going to overthink it. I'm going to do Cardinal Kestrel right here behind Moulin Rouge. Okay, and then we got Ruby in here, Fox, Infinity Red. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. It feels like I'm just going like darker to lighter. I don't know. Okay, let's go with that. All right, 3 left, right? This one I have high hopes for. Diamine Wild Strawberry. Now, this is really like the grading papers kind of red, right? This one and Diamine Poppy, I was close to doing both, but I was like, there's really a lot of Diamine already. Diamine has a ton of reds. If there's one brand that I think nails the reds the most, it's Diamine. I probably could have made a video like this just of Diamine reds, and I'm not exaggerating. Check out Wild Strawberry. I expect this one to be brighter in color, more of like a true red. Now, one thing I was thinking about this. One thing I will say is I'm maybe not in an everyday lighting situation where I am right here. This is, with a 3-foot light at exactly 5,500 Kelvin, shining and blasting it right over all these. So they look very consistent to each other, but they may look a little different in your like old fluorescent light that you have in your office or whatever. Yeah, this is much more vibrant. Has a little bit of an orange flare to it. A little bit of orange, but I'm not hating it. Let's see here. So this is Diamine Wild Strawberry. I did not leave enough room to write that word. Okay, there we go. Wild Strawberry. Ooh, okay. I know I have a lot of dark reds further up on the list here, but this one is hitting me in a very good way. I like the vibrancy of it. It is unabashedly red. It's not really flirting with any other color. The orangeness has really cut down as it's dried, and it's really just kind of a pure bright red. Wild Strawberry is going to mess up this configuration here. Oh man, I am just going to go with my gut. I'm going to have to rearrange almost everything here. I think this is going to go right behind a Red Dragon for me. My personal taste, I would not probably use a red that bright as much as I would want a darker red, but I love that color. It looks fantastic. So, okay, I feel okay about this. Got 2 more to go. We're in the home stretch. All right, I saved this one towards the end because I knew it was going to be tough. This is Diamine Oxblood, okay? So this is the darkest one. This is sort of like where I cut it off. I know there's other ones like Writer's Blood and stuff like that. I had to cut it off somewhere. And then also, I didn't want it to be all Diamine. So Writer's Blood is a very, very popular ink. I know that. There's some other popular Diamines as reds as well. So forgive me if I did not make the selection to your liking, but I didn't want to make this a 40-minute long video. All right, so this is Oxblood, and this is going to be dark. Dark. Yeah, this one flirts with the brown for sure. I probably could have cut off this color because it is, I mean, it's a definitively a red color, but it really has a lot of brown in it. But I wanted something to show kind of like the range that you can have here. It's very interesting. I mean, I've used this thing before. I keep gravitating back to Red Dragon personally, for a darker red, but I know that Oxblood is the more popular ink. If I remember correctly, I believe that Oxblood is the best-selling ink of all of the reds that I have represented here. And it is an interesting looking ink. This is a toughie because this one really stands out from the rest of the bunch. And I know it's really popular, so I can't dock it too much because obviously everybody uses it for a reason. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this behind Moulin Rouge. Okay, so it's solid in the mix, but it's not knocking down some of these other ones, the vibrancy, the shading, stuff like that. Oxblood is interesting though. It's got a little bit more color variance going on within the ink. It's got some like lighter tones that are coming out, maybe a little bit of tan, a little bit of green, I can't tell. So it's very interesting, but it is like, it looks like dried blood, like really, really dark. Yeah, okay, I feel good about this. Now we got one more, okay? You ready for this? This one's gonna complicate everything here, but I couldn't not use it. Jacques Herbin, 1670 Rouge Hematite. This ink, if you're not familiar, this was like the ink that put shimmering inks on the map. This came out in, when did it come out? 2010, I think it was. So this was not only one of the earliest inks that we carried, but all of the Robert Osters, the Diamine shimmer inks, Wearingeul, all this stuff, everything that has shimmer in it, can basically thank this color for getting it on people's radar. Life was much more boring before all this came out. Now there's umpteen different shimmers. I'm giving it a little bit of a shake because all the shimmer has kind of settled at the bottom. I really tried not to put too many shimmer inks in here because then it could easily become like a shimmer ink domination. But this one is such a legend, I had to include it. I am a little bit biased on this one too because this ink takes me way back. I mean, early garage days Goulet pens, no team members, just me and Rachel with our infant Joseph. The packaging on this is phenomenal. This is the best looking bottle of the whole bunch. Easily, like 2-3 times over. Should that matter in the ranking though? So I did give it a good little bit of a shake. I'm gonna put the cap on and shake it up again before I use the glass dip pen. And it's gonna be so tough to rank this one because the shimmer is just gonna be like an X factor that none of these other inks have. The cap is cool too. It's like a wax cap, which if you don't know, Jacques Herbin was making wax seal, stuff all the way back to 1670. If you didn't know, it's called 1670 because that's the year that they started. Fun fact. Boom. All right, so this one had to do a little cutting magic here because it took a little bit of time to dry. And now that it has dried, I can see more of the shimmer in there. It's got kind of a gold, maybe a little hint of green kind of shimmer to it. It's not like an assault on the eyes amount of shimmer. It's very, very pleasant, I gotta admit. Dang, I really like this color. I always have. This is reminding me why I like this color so much. And it's like really a rich red, like it's closer kind of in with wild strawberry. So I am going to put this one up. Maybe this is because I have a long-standing relationship with it. It's near and dear to my heart. I'm gonna put this in place here because I like it a lot and it's a very pure red. But I need to take like a minute. This is my initial ranking here, but I'm gonna take a minute and get kind of a Zen state, think about this, and then give you my final ranking.
6.5 hours later.
All right, so after my kind of just initial assessment, this is where I've slotted everything, but I'm gonna take a second because I really gotta look at them all together because honestly, they are looking a little bit different to me now that they've all fully dried and now that I have all of them in one shot. I'm definitely gonna move some stuff around a little bit. Red Dragon, I really love it. I think I'm gonna keep it where it is. Wild Strawberry is really, really good too. Rouge Hematite. I friggin' love that ink, and it just looks amazing. I wouldn't want to use it every day, but I feel really good about where that is. Captain Hook is the one that I'm struggling with, because it is so close to Red Dragon, but also, I don't know. I just am not as inclined to put it all the way up there, because I think that Oxblood needs to be higher up. I really do. Now that I see how much it's shading, and it's like fully dry, I get it. I get the appeal. I really do. So I'm going to move Oxblood up. This Captain Hook, does this order stay the same? Let's see here. Captain Hook is pretty strong. I think that's good. Moulin Rouge, I like. It's probably like the least loud. I don't know how to describe that. I feel pretty good about that too. Cardinal Kestrel is in a strong place. It's definitely the most pink. Shading is really good though. Ruby and Fox. I'm going to switch Ruby and Fox. Fox is actually kind of growing on me a little bit. It looks really good when it's down. It dried really nicely. Ruby is good. It's a great ink, but it's just not standing out to me with this group. And then Infinity Red, if I wanted the properties of it lasting longer in the pen, it'd be great. But just by the color alone, it's not ringing the bell. So this is it. This is my final ranking. I feel good about this. Yeah, I do. None of them are like as pure red as I would have expected, but these are our most popular reds that you all have been buying. Now keep in mind here, the actual ranking really doesn't matter. That's not really what the point of this is. It's just really cool for me to see these. I honestly went into this thinking like, yeah, they're all kind of red, you know, and there may be some that kind of stand out, like on the far end of the range. But honestly, like, they all look very unique. This is what's so beautiful about fountain pens and fountain pen ink. Also, it's kind of crazy making because there's so many choices, and each ink you use, you might be like, oh, I kind of like this one, but this property and that, whatever. But anyway, it's kind of fun that way. I'd never, even though I've swabbed all of these and we have them in the swab shop and I've used them here and there, I've never taken like this group of 10, looked at them all at once and kind of compared them. So this is a lot of fun and just getting to experience inks in kind of a new way. So I don't know, maybe something you could try. Just grab a bunch of your inks, swab it up like this, look at them all together, see how they hit you. I don't know, might be a different experience. So yeah, let me know what you think. Which reds are your favorite? Why do you like them? Different properties, things like that. It'd be great to know. I just wanted to have some fun and maybe inspire you a little bit. You can get these inks at gouletpens.com. Obviously, we're self-sponsored here. But yeah, just go ink up your pens and swab them out and just go have fun. That's what this is all about, right? Thank you so much for watching, and right on.